Okay, so when you feel like your plate is done, we can always go back into it later, but I would say all of my highlights are where my texture is. All of my black areas are smooth. Now I have a cup of water here, and what I want to do is I really want to water this down. This is acrylic black paint. Acrylic is plastic latex based, and if you get it in your clothes, it will not come out. So if you need to wear a smock, notice my work surface, I do have some newspaper under here, trying to make it easier to clean up. But what I want to do is I'm using my lid as my palette. I'm going to pour just a little bit of water in there and mix that so that my paint is not too thick. So normally, if you think about a stamp, you put a stamp into an ink pad, which is a very, very thin layer of ink on the surface of your stamp. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is create like a thin layer of ink with my acrylic paint. Now I know you guys have small brushes. Again, notice I'm just going to try to paint this whole thing very lightly on the surface. So I'm not concerned with getting into the deep grooves that I made. And you can even see that red, you see that texture. That tells me that I did a good job getting in there. And I want to do this quick because I know acrylic paint dries quickly. So I'm hoping that this works. If you have a big paintbrush, that would be even better. And again, let me just do this just quickly. Again, I'm just going to wet my brush every so often. Get this a little bit watery. So whatever way you can quickly get ink on your foam plate is the goal. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this paper towel so I have a clean background. Actually, it doesn't matter because when you guys print your good one, it's going to be on paper the same size. Now I'm going to lay, I have computer paper. You can use lined notebook paper, any kind of scrap paper, because this is my first print, and I'm just going to give it a good rub. And now when I peel this back, ooh, you can see now. Okay, so the problem that I have is my paint was too watered down, but you can see now the dark areas are solid and the areas that I added my texture are white. And that's what I was trying to explain to you. The ink didn't get down into those grooves. So I got a really nice print in terms of I have now highlights, midtones, and shadows, but this is where the experimentation comes in. So maybe my ink was a little bit too wet. So you can take another scrap piece of paper and use it like a paper towel. I'm just going to wipe off that excess ink. Or maybe this is going to be a better print because it's my second one. Now I did get a cool print. The ink went onto here, but now I lost that black. So the printing process may take you 1 or 2 periods to get the ink the right consistency. Let me do this again. And this time I'm not going to add so much water to my brush. This ink is already watered down, but maybe in these solid areas, I want to make sure it's a little bit thicker. Again, I'm just afraid that the acrylic paint is going to dry out, which is why I'm doing this so quick. And let me again, just get this. So the whole point of using a brayer, which is the like rolling pin, is because you actually really want a nice thin layer of ink on your plate. So where it's really thick, I'm just going to go over it with my brush and kind of wipe it side to side like that. So I'm just trying to kind of pick up those any potential thick globs. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about the ink on the outside. I'm just going to go to print. Again, add some pressure. I'm going to add a little extra pressure in the areas that I know that are particularly dark, hoping to get a better dark black print. Ah, that's much better. Okay, so it looks a little sloppy, but the paper that you're going to be printing on for your final are those small sizes, so you won't even have that excess there. I'd consider this a really good print, even though under normal circumstances, not so much if you had a brayer. But considering you're using a paintbrush and we're doing this at home, this is a good print because I have a nice dark shadow. I've got some midtones. I might go back in and do some more highlights so that this is completely white in this area. So what that means, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go run this under the sink to get all that extra ink off. Actually, before I do that, let me just try to wipe off a little bit more extra. And you could even do this with a paper towel if you're not printing, but I like to do it on paper because maybe my extra prints, ooh, that one's kind of cool. right? But let me stop and I'm gonna wash this under the sink. Actually, I'm gonna pause it. Okay, so I rinsed this under the sink so I can go back into this. This print I'm very happy with, except I want a little bit more highlight because I know there's no ink. There shouldn't be any ink over there for me. So I'm just gonna go in. I could go back in with the pen, but since I know this is a little bit wet, I'm gonna try to make this as flat as possible in the strongest highlights. So the cool thing is after you rinse this in the sink, and again, if you do it, use maybe if you have a basement sink that, you know, if you get paint in it, but if you do use a sink that's a good sink, try to get it clean, you know, with a paper towel before you go into the sink and make sure you leave the sink nice and clean. I don't want parents to get upset that you have watered down acrylic paint sticking to your sink. So I've added some pressure and you can see from the back, it's actually, if you feel it, you could see that. So I'll do one last test print to see. Let's see if that made a difference. And I'm just going to go over just that area just to show you. Let's see. Hopefully I didn't make it worse. I'm just going to do just that section because this is just a test to see if that extra indentation made a difference. Give it a good rub, transfer that ink onto my paper. And yes, it did. Well, there's a little bit extra ink there, but you can see on this side here how there's no more dots and I pressed pretty hard. So later I'll go back in. I'm going to rinse this again and let this dry. And then later I'll go back in because I just want to give you guys some time to do work.